Hey everybody, it's Shannon with Shamrock Studio Wreaths, and I am coming to you today to show you how I make my yarn pumpkins on the Dollar Tree pumpkin frame. This is what the frame looks like. It is just shaped like a perfect pumpkin. I know a lot of people have been having a hard time finding these, but if you just keep looking, keep calling up your Dollar Trees, hopefully they will have them in stock pretty soon. And so I'm going to show you today how to make these, because I have found that there are not very many videos out there to show you how to make them. So we're going to go from start to finish, and I'm going to show you exactly how I do mine, and then hopefully you can take that and run with it. A couple of them that I have already made. Here's one that has the florals and the bow. This one is just a it's just woven individually around each frame all the way across, and then coming back like this and going all the way up to the top. And so that's how I did this particular one. It's a charcoal gray, and it has florals and a really pretty bow. So I really had a lot of fun. This is the first one that I made. And then I have another one. And this one is a different style. I did this one, I guess I just call it the weaving method. I wove one section into the next as I went along, and this is the method that I'm going to show you how to do today. And I don't know, there's a little something on my pumpkin. Anyway, so this one doesn't have any florals, it's just the bow. You can see the back. You can see kind of where I tied it off in different spots, but they come out really, really cute. And so I just thought I would show you guys how to do these. And here's another one that I just finished up last night. This one's like a teal blue, and it's in that same method that I'm going to show you how to do. So this one is not finished. It doesn't have a bow attached up here. Or any florals or anything, but I just wanted to show you this is what it looks like when you finish before you put all of your embellishments on it. So I think it's really cute. I like this method. It's easy. It can be a little tedious, but I have found that if I just sit and watch TV while I'm doing it, it goes by really quickly and you can get them done pretty fast. So and before I show you what we're going to be working with, I would just want to ask if you wouldn't mind showing my page some love. It's Shamrock Studio Wreaths, and if you're watching this video, then you're already here. If you would be so kind as to spread the word to your friends, anyone who is interested in wreaths or making wreaths or purchasing wreaths, that would be great, and I would really appreciate it. So thank you very much for being here. Okay, just to kind of get some things out of the way so I can work, I'm just putting these on the floor. Okay, so what you're gonna need is you're gonna need your pumpkin frame that I showed you. You're gonna need a pair of scissors to cut your yarn with. These are just Ginger scissors. I use these pretty much for everything. And then you're going to need one full skein of yarn, and I got this at Hobby Lobby. It was $6.99 and it wasn't on sale, but I know they do put their yarns on sale, and this is the Yarn Bee brand in cranberry. So this is truthfully, this is the only one I had left, so this is the one we're going to do. So let's get started. Okay, let me turn my camera down so you can see what I'm doing. Sorry, I just got this new tripod, so I'm still kind of figuring it out. Okay, so I hope you can see what I'm doing here. Okay, so what I like to do is I like to start at the very bottom. And since, like I said, since there aren't a whole lot of videos to show you how to do this, a lot of it is just trial and error for me. So if I make a mistake, please just bear with me. But I just have kind of figured it out from the little snippet videos that are out there. And And so I'm gonna just do the best I can to show you what I do. Obviously this is a pretty big skein, and you should be able to use this entire skein on your pumpkin. And so it would be really hard to weave this size of yarn in and out of the frames of this pumpkin, because as you can see, it's a lot bigger than the spaces in the pumpkin. So what I do is I don't measure, and I know that some of you that will really bother, because I know I myself like to usually measure when I'm doing wreaths. I love to measure my ribbons and measure my mesh, but with this one, you're going to end up using the whole skein, so it doesn't really matter how much you take off at one time. The way that I do it is, if I just pull off as much yarn as I can, you know, pretty much hold in my hand, and you know, that I think I'm going to be able to go a good little ways with, and that will squish through the frame here in between the spaces in the pumpkin frame. So what I do is I'll just grab this bunch here, and I will snip it off of the skein and then set that to the side. Okay, and I'm going to start on the left side of the pumpkin frame. So if you're looking at the frame, if you're looking at the front of the frame, it'll be on your left side. That's where I will start. So I'm going to turn it towards me, and so this is going to be my left side, and that's where I will start, on the very outside right here. Okay, so what I do is I just take the end of my yarn and just wrap it to the outside piece of metal here. I don't know if you can see the outside piece of metal. I'm just going to wrap it at the very bottom, and I'm going to tie a small knot because I don't want to use up a whole lot of yarn in the knot. So I'm just going to tie it and pull it tight, just like this. Okay, and then I will end up eventually snipping this little tail off when I finish it, but for now I'm just going to leave it hanging there. Okay, so I've got it tied to the outside, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my bundle of yarn here, okay, and I'm going to just start wrapping around the outer two sections of the frame. So you're going to go all the way around. You're going to count 1, 2, and then you're going to put your yarn through and pull it out. Okay, and you're going to start wrapping, and this is a small part, the smallest part of the pumpkin frame, so it's going to look funny at first, but don't worry, you're going to get there. Okay, so it'll look funny, like, oh, what am I doing? But you'll get there. So just wrap it around, okay, and then you're going to take your yarn again. You're just going to put it back through the second opening in the pumpkin, okay, and you're going to layer another layer of yarn on top of the one that you just did. Okay, then you're going to take it, wrap it through the second part again. Okay, and you'll see that you now have 3 rows of yarn on top of each other. Okay, that's all you need to do, and you're going to wrap this all the way up to the top. You're just going to wrap it, cover the metal parts, and you want to get it fairly tight, but not so tight that you can't wiggle it around just a little bit. So you want to put it in there and just keep, you see how it's starting to kind of give that, you know, I guess I give it kind of a, I think it's kind of like a beehive look, like it's kind of stacked on top of each other. So that's what it should look like at this point. You're going to keep wrapping your yarn through. Wrap your yarn again and just keep going. And the one thing that I have found to be a little troubling is that a lot of times my yarn will find a way to knot itself. I don't know how it does that, but it does. And so sometimes you have to stop and kind of backtrack and go through and find where the knot is and then untie it. So as you can see, we've got a nice little wrap going on. Okay, so we're going to keep going. just taking our yarn and, ooh, that's a mess. Sorry about that. Just taking our yarn and putting it through. Now, here's what, I guess this is a good teachable moment, because what I did was I let go of my big yarn bundle, and see, now I've got a mess. So what I have to do is kind of pull it back. And, you know, it happens. It's no big deal. So you just pull it all back out again, okay? And then you kind of gather your bundle back up together, and you're gonna punch it through the second opening again, and just kind of restack your yarn here, and you're gonna keep going. Keep going, and you're just gonna kind of squash the yarn down on top of itself. Okay. And typically, if you're doing this, you're not going to be, you know, holding it up to a camera while you're doing it, so it'll be a lot easier on your hands. So I'm kind of doing it backwards, so please forgive me for my sloppiness here. But anyway, you're just going to keep wrapping. Put your bundle through the second opening. Keep wrapping and kind of try to speed up a little bit if I can, so you're not bored to tears. Okay. Just keep wrapping. So you can see it is a little bit tedious, but I think the end result is worth it, because it is so cute. So cute, this pumpkin. I love it. It's the first, these are the first few that I've ever made on this frame, so yeah, I've really enjoyed making them. I've had a lot of fun doing it, and I hope you will too. Now, the cool part about this yarn is that it's very forgiving. So if you run out and you need to start a new section, you'll never be able to see it, because the yarn is so fluffy and fat that it's going to hide any kind of imperfections, like, oh, I had to start here again with a new knot, but you won't be able to see it. And once I get to the end of this yarn, I'll be able to show you that. So we're just going to keep wrapping here at the top. We're coming close to the top, and you see it kind of slides up, and you want to just push it back down on top of itself. Just keep putting the yarn through, keep stacking it like a beehive. Okay, and every once in a while I like to kind of give it a little tug and maybe pull it a little bit tight, so that it's not flopping and loose, because you don't want it to be loose. It'll look weird. So anyway, just keep going. And you might want to put it through the fat part of the pumpkin frame, the fat part of the opening, so that you have room to get your hand in there, because it's going to start to get pretty skinny here at the top. So we're just going to, you can see this is a little bit loose right here, so I'm going to pull the top yarn away from the second yarn and tighten it up just a little bit. Okay, so I'll tighten that there. Grab my bundle again, just wrap it again into the second row. Okay, and we are coming to the top, which for me, this is the trickiest part of the entire pumpkin, is right up here on the very end at the top, because I kind of had to figure out on my own what I wanted to do with this. And I think it's been a little bit different every time I've done it. So, whew, sorry, my yarn is coming apart here. My little beehive is coming apart. So I'm just going to keep wrapping. But you'll see what I'm talking about here in just a second. It gets a little tricky. Keep wrapping. Keep wrapping. Okay, now what I want to tell you about the top of the pumpkin when you get to the top, so you can see I've now got one whole section wrapped up with the yarn. Okay, so it's this whole first entire section is done. Okay, and it looks really cute. I really like this cranberry color. Maybe not necessarily for pumpkins, but I'm gonna add some oranges and some yellows to it when I get the leaves and the bow put together, so that, you know, or maybe some flowers, you know, some kind of, this one's kind of an orange color, but I do have some other fall flowers that I think would look really cute that I could add in, that have pretty fall colors. So I think that would really go nicely with the cranberry. So I'll see once I get my bow put together what I want to do with it. Anyway, so now here I am at the top, okay, and I was very concerned at first that sometimes maybe the top of the pumpkin would show, but I discovered that pretty much when I kept working with it, that it ended up really not showing that much, and anything that did show, it would be covered up with your bow and your florals anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Like, even if you wanted to leave it kind of blank up here, that would be fine, you know, however you want to do it, but I choose to try to cover it up as well as I can. And so the next thing that we're going to do, the next trick that we're going to pull here, is we're going to go on to the next section. So you might want to wrap it a couple more times, just to cover that top wire. You know, kind of how you do it is up to you. Sorry, like I said, this part of the pumpkin is kind of hit and miss for me. It's the most difficult part. And actually this needs to be tightened down a little because it's starting to slip. So let me just pull my yarn down a little bit tighter so I have not so much slack in my, oh yeah, you can see I've got a lot of slack in there. So let me kind of fix that. So if you find yourself with slack in your yarn, you can kind of just pull it from the bottom and it should loosen from the top here. Wow, I have a lot more than I thought I did. Sorry about that. And you're just going to pull it down from the top and squash it down to where you have quite a bit of metal left at the top. So, and I'll have to go back around a couple of times with my bundle. And just kind of tighten it up. It's hard to do when I'm not looking at it straight on, but I'm going to push it. Oh my goodness. Might have gone a little too far. Okay, there we go. Just going to push it down just a little bit. Okay, wrap it again a few more times just to take up some of that blank space that's on the frame. And you'll have to forgive me if I'm talking too much, because this is actually the first video that I've made. It's the first instructional video I've made. My good friend Alexis gifted me with this tripod that my phone is on, just so that I could make these videos. So I'm really excited to be sharing this one with you tonight, and I hope you enjoy it, and I hope you learn something that you can take away with you, and so that you can make these on your own at home. So we're just going to wrap again a couple more times. Like I said, it's trial and error. You kind of just have to figure out You want it, you know, snug so it covers the frame, but not so snug that you can't weave into the next section or weave the next section into it. Okay, so I'm going to leave it like that for now. We're just going to keep wrapping, going back towards the second wire now, the second opening. Okay, and so what I decided to do is I just wrap this wire up here just a few times to get it covered. Get your yarn back through the hole here. Okay, and so as you can see, I've kind of just covered up, the top part. Okay, now here's where it gets tricky again, because I have to find the end of the yarn. This is the fun part, right? You're constantly searching for the end of the yarn. Okay, here it is. Here's the end of my yarn. So I'm going to pick up my bundle, and I'm going to come around now. Let me look at it. How do I want to do this? Okay. Okay, I know what I'm going to do. So, hey y'all, I'm back. I had to do a quick little edit because my husband decided to call me in the middle of the video. And I wanted to change my shirt because I realized that I was about to show y'all more than you wanted to see. So, anyway, I'm back and we are starting back at the top of the pumpkin frame. We're going to find the first available space between our two yarn sections at the top, where you can actually put your finger through, which is about right here. Actually, let's go one more up. So in between two of your sections here, you're going to see there's a little space, and you can put your finger through the frame. So what you're going to do is you're going to take the end of your yarn and you're going to poke it through the hole in between your two your first two sections of yarn on the first section that you just wrapped. And then you're going to pull it and hopefully not get your yarn knotted up in the process. You're just going to pull it all the way through to the end. Okay? And so this is where we're going to start our second row now on the wider second section of the pumpkin. You're then going to gather up your yarn in a bundle, and you're going to put it through the third opening. So we have 1, 2, 3. So now the yarn is going to come through the third opening in a bundle. Okay, you're going to look for the end of your yarn. Hopefully you can find it fairly quickly. Hopefully I can find it fairly quickly. Okay, here it is. Find the end of your yarn. Go down to the next section in between the next two wraps of yarn that you did on the first one, and you're just going to pull. And it's really simple, and you can do it fairly fast. Just pull your yarn through, trying not to knot it up in the process. Just pull it through until you have another section. Okay? And you're probably going to smash down the first section of yarn, but it's okay because it'll fluff right back up. You just have to pull on it a little bit and get it fluffed back up. Okay, so now we're starting our second beehive, if you will, on the second part of, or on the second opening of the pumpkin, and it's going to stretch all the way across. You're going to pull out your end of your yarn. You're going to come to the third section. Stick your finger through there. Okay. Put the yarn through the hole and just start pulling. Just start pulling it all the way through, and it'll kind of move sometimes over to the left, and that's okay. Once you get your to the end of the pull, you'll just move it back over to the right and kind of refluff your first section where it went through. Okay, then you're just going to repeat that again. Wrap it through the third opening in the pumpkin. Put your finger in that little hole. Find the end of your yarn. Okay, and you're going to stick it right through and pull. Okay, and as you see, it's now starting to form that beehive on the second opening. You're going to refluff your first section here, just briefly. If you want to, you can do it as you go. I like to do it as I go because I kind of like to see the pattern that it creates. You can see it's starting to create a pattern here, a woven pattern. So just pull it kind of snugly, not too tight, not too loose. Gather up your yarn, put it through the third opening, find the end, find your space with your finger, stick it through, and pull. Okay, then you're going to fluff up your first section again, kind of tighten your second section, and just repeat. Finding the end of your yarn and going all the way through. And I'm going to try and, okay, now see, here's what can happen. You can end up with a knot in your yarn, and this is what I've done. So I'm going to pull it back out. Okay, and I'm going to just unknot that little loop in my yarn right there. Okay, I'm going to refine my end, and I'm going to put it back in. See, so if you make a mistake, it's really easy to fix. They're not, you're not going to end up messing up your whole project just by making one mistake. So you're just going to pull that through. Okay. Wrap it through the third opening of the pumpkin. Find your end of your yarn, fluff up your first section, tighten this one a little bit, find the next space, pull your yarn through. Okay, and it's going to start forming this really pretty little beehive pattern. You see that? Okay. Go back with your yarn through the third opening. Find your end, put it through the hole in the next space, and pull. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause for a minute, and I'm just going to finish up this part, and when we get to the bottom again, I'm going to show you what to do there. And I'll be back in a moment. Okay, hello again, I am back, and as you can see, I have finished up the second section of my pumpkin, almost. I'm just down here at the bottom. I just have a little bit left to go on this bar right here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm on my last section now. Okay, I'm on my last section of where I have an opening to run my yarn through and pull. So this one gets a little more difficult because it's tighter down here at the bottom than it was in the wide part of the pumpkin. So it gets a little more difficult. You don't have as much space to work with. So you kind of just have to work it in there to where you can pull your yarn through. Okay, and as you can see right here, I've got this knot where I started. Okay, and we don't really want that necessarily to show, so you can just turn it, and the little tail that is attached to it, you can just kind of pull it and turn it to the back. Now here's what I was talking about, this yarn being very forgiving. Once you get to this section, you're just going to end up wrapping because you don't have any more sections to weave. So you're just going to end up wrapping like you've been doing in that beehive pattern. Okay, you're just going to wrap it a couple of times. Okay, and give yourself a couple more beehives there, and see, once you do that, that knot at the bottom is not going to show any longer. Okay, so that's going to be hidden. Now, the easy part about what we're going to do next is we're going to take our yarn and we're going to go to not the next opening, but the one next to it. So this is now going to be our 1, 2, 3, 4th opening. So you're going to take your yarn, you're going to pull it through your 4th, whoops, never mind, you're not going to do that. You're going to go behind the bars this way, okay? And you're going to put it through the 4th opening, okay? And you're going to wrap back through these little sections right here. And you're going to pull just like we did all the way down the 2nd section. Okay? And it's going to look a little weird and strange, but don't worry, it's going to correct itself. Okay? You're going to keep wrapping. You're going to find that hole, that next hole right here. You're going to pull through, and you're now starting a beehive on this 3rd section. Okay? And that little excess from the wrap, you can just kind of tuck it back. It's not really going to matter here in a minute. Okay? And then you can kind of like pull this down, look for your little opening. So basically you're doing the same thing you've done all the way down the 2nd section, except you're going to be coming back up this time. Okay? You're going to come back up. And you're going to wrap after you've pulled. Find your next section with your finger. Wrap it in there. And pull. Okay? And you can see we're kind of starting to get to the end of our yarn bundle. Okay? So we want to wrap this as many times as we can get out of this particular piece of yarn. Okay, so what I'm going to do right now is, since I don't have very much left, this is where I'm going to stop this piece of yarn, is right here where my thumb is. Okay, I'm going to take it all the way. I'm going to take it all the way in, and I'm just going to tie a knot in it. And I've found that the knots they stay pretty secure. They are not, you don't need to hot glue them or wire them or anything. Just tie a knot, and see the little tail that's sticking out the front? Just tuck it in between your spaces there. Okay? And your knot, you can kind of tuck it also. Because once you get all this yarn on here, it's not going to show at all. You're not going to see that. Okay? So you're thinking, okay, well, what do I do next? I'm out of yarn. Well, you're not out of yarn. You have a whole big bundle over here that you're going to grab and unwrap. Another big bundle for yourself. Okay. You're just going to snip it off. Okay. Put your bundle to the side. And then you're going to find the end. And we're like about here, I guess. So what we want to do is maybe start on the next section over and tie a knot here. Because again, it's not going to show once you get all your yarn on. Okay, so you're just going to tie a knot there. Give it a good little tug, make it tight. Okay, and kind of turn the knot to the back, and the little tail, turn that to the back also. Okay, then you're going to find the opposite end of your yarn, and now you're back with a big bundle again. So you're just going to go to the next space. See where this little knot was? Okay, we're just going to pretend that this particular strand goes all the way around, but it doesn't. It ends in a knot that you can't really see. So you're going to go up to the next spot, the next space. Stick your end of your yarn through the hole. Pull it about 50,000 times. Okay, and it's going to make your next beehive section. Then you're going to bundle up and go through the next opening in the pumpkin. Okay, get your end of your yarn, put your finger through, pull it through. Okay, so you'll see here in just a second that you're not going to be able to tell where those knots are, where you stopped and started a new piece of yarn. Okay, I'm going to refluff my previous section. Okay, so here's your knots. Here's your knot, but you're not going to be able to tell at all that that's the end right there, because it's just going to blend in really nicely with the rest of your pumpkin. Okay, it's going to blend in really nicely with the rest of your yarn, especially if you're using all the same color. Now, while we're stopped here, I wanted to just kind of give you a tip that if you feel like your yarn is too loose, like you see it kind of gapping out from the other pieces of yarn, all you have to do is start from the pieces that came previously. Let's say this one is gapping out right here, okay, because you didn't wrap it tight enough and it's too loose. Okay, so you can come back here to the previous ones. Okay, actually, sorry, you're going to come back to the ones you did after that one. Okay, you're going to pull them a little tighter. Okay, and as you can see, that one that I yanked out there, as I'm pulling on the ones above it, it's starting to tighten up. Okay, and of course I picked a weird place to do that because of the knots. But if you pull on the sections above where you want to tighten it, you can just tighten it all up. And that's what I really like about doing this particular type of wreath, is that it's very easy to correct any mistakes. You just have to play with it and kind of figure out where the mistakes are and how you can fix them. They're pretty common sense fixes. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to finish wrapping this up all the way to the top, and I actually may go ahead and finish it up all the way to the last section, and then come back and show you how to finish up your pumpkin. Everything that you do is the same as what we've been doing for the first 3 sections here. Okay, you're just going to go top to bottom, bottom to top. I'm sorry, you're going to go bottom to top, top to bottom, and then bottom back up to the top, and you're just going to continue that pattern as you go all the way around the pumpkin. You're just going to keep doing that over and over and over again, and then I'm going to come back, I'm going to finish this up, and I'm going to come back and show you the rest of the pumpkin and how I finish it up at the end, and it's going to be really cute. And I hope you are enjoying this, and I hope you are making some cute little yarn pumpkins, and I'll be back later. Hey everybody, I'm back to finish up our yarn pumpkin tutorial, and I'm sorry if you hear kind of a funny sound in the background. I've got a fan going because it's ridiculously hot in the upstairs of my house, so I hope you can hear me okay. We're here now. I've finished up all but the last section of the pumpkin, and as you can see, it's got this really cool kind of woven pattern all the way around. Can't really see any knots or endings or anything like that. Everything looks fairly good. So we're just going to start right here at the end and finish it up. So if you will, go ahead and take the end of your yarn, and I kind of squished up the yarn that's already on the frame, kind of pulled it up a little bit so you can see there's a little bit of metal here at the bottom, just that last section, and that's where I'm going to tie a knot. So I'm just going to tie a knot right around it and start underneath that first section of yarn and just pull it pretty tight. And as I've mentioned, it's pretty forgiving, so you're not going to see this. And I'm going to snip off this tail here. Okay. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just go ahead and take my bundle and start weaving. And one thing that I wanted to add, as I was working on this last night, it came to me that instead of constantly hunting for the end of my yarn, it might be easier to just hang on to it when I poke it through the hole. So that seemed to be a pretty good solution. So what we're going to do is we're just going to start our weave in through the first section where my finger is here. I'm just going to poke it through the hole, and I'm going to hang on to the end of the yarn so I don't lose it. Just keep it kind of tucked into your hand as you're pulling your yarn through. Okay. And I've got quite a bit left here at the end, so it's taken me a little longer to pull it all the way through. Okay. But that's going to kind of make an extra little row in there for you. Okay, so it'll kind of pull that bottom down to cover the bottom of your frame. And then I'm just gonna, I've already got my yarn in my hand still, so I'm going to go to the next section where I put my finger here. Okay, poke it through, hold on to the end of your yarn, and just start pulling. Just start pulling from the underside. I probably could have cut this a little shorter, but I didn't want to risk running out when I get to the top. So I know I have plenty left because there is plenty of yarn on this skein. Okay, and so it's going to turn a little bit diagonally. Let's see if you can see that. It's going to turn a little bit diagonally instead of going sideways once you start here at the bottom, just because of the shape of the frame, the rounded shape. But once it starts to get up here, it's going to turn into this beehive look again. Okay, so I'm going to wrap again with my tail of my yarn around the outside of my frame, stick my finger through here, and pull again. Uh-oh, I forgot my own trick and let go of the tail of my yarn, but here we go, I found it. Okay. All right. I'm hoping to get this video up tonight because I know I've seen in my Facebook groups that some people are asking for tutorials. I know there's just not a lot out there right now, so I'm hoping this is helpful, and I hope I did all right for my first video, and that you can see what I'm doing and that it's not terribly boring. Okay, so I'm just doing the same thing I've been doing all along, poking the hole, poking the finger through the hole, and pulling the yarn through, just section by section. Hoping not to knot it all up. Okay, so there it is. One other thing I wanted to mention while I'm working on this is that you do want to pull your sections fairly snugly, because if you don't, what's going to happen is the yarn is going to slide around on the frame, and you're going to end up with gaps in between your yarn, which you don't necessarily want. You want enough of a gap to be able to get your finger inside there, and you want to be able to have enough room to pull your yarn through, but you don't necessarily want it to be all sloppy and slidey all over the frame. So I would suggest definitely pulling it snugly. If your frame bend, like sometimes I'll pull it tight and I'll get a little bit of a bend feeling in the frame, and where I can feel it kind of pulling, and that's at the point where I stop. That's pretty much my point of stopping pulling it so tight. It doesn't bend the frame, it doesn't hurt the frame unless you know, just ridiculously pull it hard. But you can kind of see I'm giving it a good tug here, okay? So it's nicely stacked on the frame, especially here at the end, because you don't want loose yarn running everywhere. Okay. Okay, and you can see I'm just pulling. I really like this method. I think the pumpkin comes out really cute. And I have so far completed 2 pumpkins all the way to the end, and they have both sold. And I have a third, that aqua blue one I showed you at the beginning of the video, and I still have to complete that one and finish the bow and any kind of embellishments I want to add to it. So I've got to finish that one up, and then I also embellish this one and hope that they sell as well. If you're wondering about pricing your wreaths or pricing these pumpkins, for me, the formula that I use is double the cost of my supplies. So I add up everything that I have spent on a wreath, and then I double it. And when I say everything I've spent, I mean everything. I will double the price of my zip ties. I will double the price of pipe cleaners, because all of those little things that you use in your wreaths, they eventually add up. And so I make a spreadsheet for myself, and I, you know, call it an invoice, and then I just add up everything that I spent on the wreath, and then I double it, and that's what I sell my wreaths for. So, you know, one pumpkin wreath might go for $35, and then if you have one that's more elaborate, it might go for $50. You never know. Just, you know, just base it on what you've put into the wreath, and don't undersell yourself, because, you know, it's not hurting anyone but you. And I know I've heard people say that they have a hard time selling in their area, but I do a lot of selling on Facebook. I do a lot of selling on Facebook Marketplace, and also just through word of mouth. And, you know, people at my job know that I do this, so I kind of spread the word as I go. And I've sold quite a few to people that I work with. So, you know, you never know when you might get a customer just from talking about what it is that you do. So it's a lot of fun. Okay, so I'm not sure what's going on here. Something is happening with my yarn. Somehow I ended up with 2 tails, I think because I started talking and quit paying attention. Okay, here we go. All right, so we're about halfway up now. I'm just gonna hang on to my tail of my yarn and keep pulling. This gives you good arm muscles, if nothing else. Okay, go to the next section, pull it through. And if you have a few little gaps on the side where you can see the frame, just some tiny gaps, some tiny spaces, just play with your yarn, move it around, you know, cover, because surely you're going to find a spot in there where you've got some that are squished too tightly together and then some that are a little bit loose. So you want to just kind of play around with it. And if a little teeny part of the frame shows, it's not going to matter, because this part's going to be up against the wall, so nobody's really going to see it at all. I wouldn't worry about that. But I am sort of a perfectionist, but I try not to. This is a fun job for me. It's a side job, but it's a fun job for me. because I find it very therapeutic. So, and I like to be able to express my creativity, and I think that's pretty much what this is all about. For me, anyway. Okay, we're almost there, folks. We are almost there. Oops, got my hand caught. Okay, so as you can see, I'm starting to get some spaces in here, some pretty visible spaces, which we're not going to want, but I'm going to keep pulling through until I get finished, and then I'm going to show you how I can adjust that, okay? So if you have some spaces, that's no big deal. Don't fret. Just keep doing what you're doing, and then we can come back and fix that later. I've got just a couple more to do. Okay, let's see where we are. I've got one more spot here that I can loop. So I'm going to loop it through that top space, pull it out, and we are done. Okay, that is the end of your pumpkin right there. Okay, and so what I will do is I will take my long tail that I have here, and I'm going to leave just enough for me to tie it off at the top. And as you can see, I've got some of the frame right here that's available. You know, I've got some available real estate here at the top. So I'm just gonna snip that and then put the rest of my bundle off to the side. So see, I had plenty of yarn to complete this pumpkin. Okay, and then I'm just gonna pull this through, and I'm gonna tie a little knot, just like I've been doing all along. And these knots, they're not going anywhere. When you pull them tight, they are not going anywhere. Okay, so I'm going to snip that tail off. And then I'm going to also come back and look at the other tails that I have kind of sticking out. They look kind of weird, wormy little tails. And I'm just going to cut them off here at the back. Try to remember that you're cutting the tail and not the knot itself. Just be careful that you don't cut your knots, because then it will go somewhere. Okay. And usually I put placemats on the backs of my wreaths, but for one, I don't have a pumpkin shaped placemat. I haven't been lucky enough to find one of those. And two, I don't think that the backs of these wreaths, I don't think that the backs of these wreaths are, you know, so ugly that they need to be covered up. You don't have wires and things poking out. So I just leave these alone. Okay, so what do we do about this? Okay, we've got spaces. So if you look at the bottom, I've got extra tight beehive pattern here. Okay, so I'm just gonna play with it. I'm just gonna kind of move it around, just kind of squish it together. Use some of this yarn from the bottom to bring it up and cover up that empty space on the frame. Okay. And then if you see little parts that poke out or look strange, or, you know, have any, like here, this one's a little diagonal for my taste. So I'm just going to adjust it. I'm just going to move it around. The yarn is really forgiving. It's very easy to work with. You can kind of smooth it out. Okay, so I'm back once again. Just I guess the perils of doing a video for the first time. My phone ran out of space, so I had to clear out some stuff. But anyway, I just wanted to finish up with you the pumpkin tutorial. At the top of your frame, you've got a nice place that you can attach your bow or any florals or anything that, you know, fall leaves, anything that you want to put on your pumpkin wreath at the top. I think bows are really pretty. If you want to just add a bow, you can do that. If you want to just wrap the stem with some jute material or some thinner yarn, you can do that. In fact, I've got, you can get this corded jute material and just wrap it around and around the stem. You can get this at Michael's, Hobby Lobby, anywhere. You can just wrap it up and make it look like a pumpkin stem, or you can hide it completely and you can just do a big bow in the front, or florals coming out the side, or just the bow. You know, it's your creativity, so whatever you would like to do is completely up to you. So I hope that you've enjoyed the tutorial. Again, my name is Shannon from Shamrock Studio Wreaths, and I really hope that you've learned something and that this has helped you. And if you would not mind showing my page some love, I would really truly appreciate that. And please spread the word and let your friends know about me here. And I appreciate it. And you guys have a good night and happy crafting.